September 25th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. I'd like to, before we start, I'd like to welcome back Council Member Joshua Francie to the group. And now, Deputy Clerk Weiss, can we get the roll call?
Ellis.
Here.
Francie.
Here.
Gaten.
Here.
Hodgkin. Lawrence.
Here.
Mackey.
Here.
Morrison.
Here.
Piercini. Fredo.
Here.
Sedor.
Here.
Swart.
Here.
Taylor.
Here.
Or.
Here.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to move to excuse Councilmember Piercini.
Can we make an amendment to also excuse Councilmember Hodgkin?
Yes.
Their second.
Second.
First and a second, is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Okay, thank you. Thanks. Ron, you. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Oh, can we all stand if you can stand, and if you're willing, for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Council President.
I'd like to make a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yes. So we have a zoning code update presentation. Is that right?
Yep.
Push down on the button, cause the little red light to come on.
I know which one, the one underneath.
There you go.
Bob Bangford from Makers is going to do a presentation this evening on the zoning code. We are at the final stages of that, and this is the last presentation, so to speak, and we'll be bringing the first reading of the ordinance forward on October 9th. So with that, I just would welcome Bob and really have appreciated working with Makers and all the work. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, council members, members of the public. I met with you about a month ago to give you a quick overview. Now that we've got a public hearing, thought I would do a slightly less voluminous presentation on it to also give the public a chance to understand what the code is. And now I think that you've got a draft, one of the full draft of the code. Gonna walk through that. So I guess I'll say next, Lisa, to advance the slides.
Yep, it's got them.
Okay, next slide. So going to give you a quick overview here. Let's just go straight to the next slide. So we have completely redone and reorganized Title 17. And right now you've got Title 17, the zoning title has 27 chapters. We've narrowed that down. What we've trying to do is make the code easier to navigate and more adaptable to future changes. Next slide. These next couple slides give us an idea. So we've got the title, and within that we've got 6 divisions. It's a little hard to read with the green, but we've got 6 divisions to break it up, and you can see those on the right. I'm going to walk through these, so I won't name them out here. And then, of course, you've got the chapters and sections under that. And then the next slide kind of explains, and this is all in the draft code, which should be available online now. On the left explains on the chart on the left side what the current code chapters are, and on the right is the location in the new chapters. So we had to make sure that we were covering everything, but since the code has just been cobbled together over 50 years, it's time to completely relook at it and try to make it a little bit easier to use. So that's what we've been trying to do. Next slide. Division 1 is just some of the basic general provisions. Next slide will explain, it's just some of the some of the applicability sections and largely definitions, and there's quite a few updates there. Next slide is the procedures. This is largely the applications procedures and permit revisions and expirations. There's been a lot of updates there to try to clarify what the processes are for the various permits. And the next slide, I believe we got one more slide. So what we did is what most cities do and break down your review processes into one of these four types. And two of them are administrative. The third is hearing examiner, and the fourth is city council. Actually, I met with you several weeks ago. We had there was an additional type of the planning commissioner decision, but we've got clarification and narrowed that down. Planning commission makes recommendations and not any of the decisions, so we simply work that largely into the hearing examiner. And there are some, of course, comp plan and zoning code ordinances get planning commissioner recommendation. Next slide. And this is just an example of some of the details that you'll see in the draft code. It looks at these various things, like is there a pre-application conference? And the chart says either, at the discretion of director, or yes, there is. Is there a notice of application required? You could see the no, yes, 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 yes. Is there a recommendation? Who's the decision being made by? Is there a notice of decision? So all that is clearly set forth in Division 2 there for these different types. Next slide. We'll get into Division 3 is permits, and that includes just the basic administrative site plan review, subdivisions, boundary line adjustments, conditional uses, and variances. And you can see to the right, we're explaining whether all the content is new versus is it a complete update of the current stuff, or in some cases, there are some revisions to existing chapters. And we try to be clear in noting that in the draft. Next slide. This is just an example when there are certain sections, when they're based on the existing, we list the section number to the right of the section title. And in some cases, you can see the strikeouts are some of those changes. And in other cases, it's completely new. And in that case, we just say new. So next slide. Now we'll get into kind of the meat of the zoning code, and that's the Division 4 on the zones and the land uses. And so this is just a listing of the chapters that have your allowed uses, form and intensity standards. And let's just keep going. I'll get into the guts of this. As part of this, we've updated the zoning map. Here it is. I'm going to walk through some of the changes and elements of it. Next slide. So some of the things that we've done is consolidated permitted use provisions. We've tried to be clear. We've got use specific standards for different types of, say, residential or commercial uses, and making sure that we got good cross references. We've consolidated the development standards and reorganized chapters and sections. And this kind of shows an example where we've got the zones. Right now, you just have the standards for each zone and you list them out. With this, we've done what most cities do, and that's simply have your zones in the columns, and then we list the use of like the standards on the left and indicate what those are. Next slide. And then we've done the same thing with the permitted use provisions. You can see the uses on the left, and then the P's mean permitted, C's mean conditional uses, and the references on the right refer to some of the development standards for that particular use. So you can see an example would be for medical uses. There are specific types. The permissions are based on how much floor area the medical use has. There's a threshold of 20,000 square feet of gross building floor area. And then you can see the permissions. And And then some of the standards are in 1744-30A. Next slide. And then again, the same thing you can see on the left is just a snapshot of the current code by zone, and the new one lists out clearly so you can compare what the different standards are. And these are the 4 residential zones. And so you can see the minimum lot sizes, the maximum units per lot coverage standards, setbacks. Next slide. I'm going to walk a little bit through the residential zones because that's probably what most people are interested in and will impact most people in the community. And because we've done a few changes, residential low on the right, you can see where those residential low zoned lands are. And on the left, I'm just going to walk through some of the use types. So obviously, single family detached homes. But also new to this code are allowances for middle housing, which refers to like duplexes and triplexes, and even townhomes up to 4 units per building, and accessory dwelling units. And another unique provision is allowance for very small, like corner stores, up to just 2,000 square feet of use. That is an option in these zones. If somebody, it's unlikely, given what the trends are in commercial retail development, but it's an option. If people wanted to do that, and you have a corner lot, you can put a corner store in up to 2,000 square feet. So that's something new. Density, you can have 1 unit where the like the duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes come in. You can get 1 unit per 1,250 square feet of lot area. So if you've got, let's see, is that 5,000 square feet, you can get 4 units on it, provided you meet all the other standards. Your height limit, I believe, is the same at 35, lot coverage, 45%, the percentage that buildings cover. Setbacks, front setbacks been reduced a little bit down to 15, but then we've got a setback for the front of the garage, which is 20 feet. So cars don't block the sidewalk if you park a car in front of the garage. All the other setbacks are the same. Next slide. I can sort of walk through this, so let's keep going. So just wanted to explain some of the other housing types. So the example in the red there is like, it could be an example of a duplex. And you have a lot of alleys in Aberdeen, which makes it easier to do a lot of these things. So when you have one, you could put obviously your parking in a garage off the back. So this is an example of a duplex on a very small lot. You can make it work and fit into the community. The upper right is a house and an accessory dwelling unit. In that case, if there is no alley, you've got a driveway off to the side. And then on the right, an example of a townhome with 3 units and with an alley off the back where your parking is. And in this case, they also have a little drive with some garages, just to give you an idea that these things would be allowed if people choose to either change their lot or add another unit to their home. It's an option in the RL zone. Next slide. Another important thing with this is making sure that we had some design standards with it so it fit in to the character of the neighborhood. So the few design standards we have are making sure there's pedestrian access provisions paved between the street and each middle housing building, making sure that there's a covered entry. If you have an alley, you have to use it when it's improved. You have to use it for your access. Another thing is if you're getting more units, garage doors, there's going to be more a need for vehicular access, and that could have a bigger impact on the design and compatibility with the neighborhood. So what we've done is limit garage doors to no more than 50% of the facade of buildings. So if you got a 40-foot wide home, you can have a maximum of 20 feet of garage door area, for instance. Likewise, driveways, there's some limitations on how much you could do. You can't just have one giant driveway in a 4-car garage. So you're limited to either one 20-foot driveway, or you can have separate 12-foot driveways serving individual units. And then there's some really basic facade articulation to make sure if you've got a duplex or triplex with their entries facing the street, there has to be some differentiation on the facade that makes them that breaks up the massing of the building a little bit. Setbacks, again, this is just explaining what I mentioned about the 20-foot garage setback, allowing the house to come forward up to 15 feet. The other part is allowing porch or front entry to project another 6 feet, because you like to encourage those things. So that's an important thing that we always suggest. Next slide. And then there's the parking, of course. The requirements that propose maintaining at least 2 spaces of off-street parking for every 2+ bedroom unit, whether that's a detached single-family home or duplex or triplex. If you've got cottages, which are small homes, I believe up to 1,200 square feet, surrounded by open space, there's 1.5 spaces per cottage. And then if you've got small units, whether you've got a small home or a small unit in a duplex or triplex, 1 space per studio or 1-bedroom unit or accessory dwelling unit, because those are going to be smaller and probably have fewer people living in them. Let's keep going here. Next slide. And again, I mentioned the corner store options. So, you know, most of the older towns like Aberdeen used to have corner stores here and there in the residential neighborhoods. And so this is a provision to simply allow for that again. And it's a big trend across the state, and there are a number of other cities that are doing this as well. The residential high is sort of the multifamily zone, and you can see the locations of it. Not too many changes there, other than, again, allowing that corner store provision. But there they could be up to 4,000 square feet. They could be a little bit bigger there. Next slide. Also, there's some design standards that are new for multifamily development. And again, there's some of those adjusted parking requirements. Next slide. Waterfront residential is just a small area along the Wishkah that's impacted by in flood zone. And it's similar to residential low, but it's got special flood hazard protection measures. Flex residential is a unique carve out of some of the current residential low areas, and it's similar to that, but because it kind of borders the industrial area, there's a little bit more flexibility to mix in commercial and some light industrial uses. Next slide. So we'll get into the mixed use and commercial zones.
Pardon me? Well, it kind of helps to see the exhibit that was just on that slide. Can I ask a quick question about that? Can you go back to that prior slide? So just a quick question on this, on the right, that flex residential zoned area. There's a pocket right in there that is not zoned for that. Why is an area like that excluded? Why are you creating a pocket within an area like that?
Is that a school? I don't remember.
Pardon?
It's a school.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, I won't go through these too elaborately here, but you've got your downtown mixed use zone. Let's keep going. You've got a neighborhood mixed use zone, and I'll get into some map changes on that in a minute. Let's keep going. And your commercial zone, obviously the outside of downtown and along the highway corridor couplet. And then your waterfront zone that includes a lot of the shopping areas east of the Wishkah and some of those other waterfront areas below the bridges. And then your industrial, what we call flex industrial zones, you can see here. in the gray. Not many changes to the zoning provisions there, though. Next slide. So I did want to touch on some of the map updates. Here's the map. We already showed it. But let's walk through a couple of these slides that explain. So on the left is the comp plan map. And so you had a pretty big NC zoned area and your downtown was bigger. The proposed revision is that we reduce the size of the NC zone and make it more of the residential high. Particularly when there already is that provision allowance for corner stores, so it still allows some of the neighborhood commercial aspect, but we think the residential high works better there. And likewise with the downtown, shifting the boundaries down, it didn't need to be so big because the NC allows a little bit more flexibility for ground floor residential uses. Next slide. Here in the between the couplet before you get to the bridge on the east side of town, there's the car dealership, and that strangely enough is zoned neighborhood commercial, but it just doesn't really fit with the vision for the neighborhood commercial zone. So we thought commercial with the big C there on the right map works better. Next slide. And then there was this flex residential zone down here in the south part of town, but there's really no industrial. There's a lot of wetland impact areas. So RL simply seems more appropriate to that site. So that was the change there. A couple other ones. The flex industrial, we're expanding it slightly by in some case like a block or a block and a half in those circled areas to allow, the existing residential uses can stay, but this allows, if there's potential to expand some of the industrial uses, it allows that opportunity. Division 5 is what we call community design and gets into public street improvement when they're required, street design provisions, including, if there's a new residential street, what the cross section is, how wide sidewalks need to be, those types of things. The next chapter gets into driveways and access, which I talked about a little bit. And then subdivision design and block structure. It's mostly standards for when there's any new subdivisions, and you're pretty much built out, so you don't need it too much, but we wanted to touch on a few things there. So this is the type of things that are in the street standards where they explain some of the basic cross section of the streets when they're upgraded. And this is intended to work together with the public works standards that will dive into more of the details. This just deals with more of the dimensions of the big features. And then the driveway provisions, which I kind of went over. The map on the right shows an example, or the graphic shows an example of a triplex and what you could do for driveways. So you can't, again, have all driveways, but in this case, they can either have, single car wide garages, or they could have tandem garages where you got, one car behind another, which is, I had a townhouse for several years and had a tandem garage and it worked pretty good. Although you had to occasionally tell your partner or wife, husband to move the car sometimes, but it worked. And then Division 6 is where all the project design standards are. So you can see the topics here. Let's go to the next slide. I'll get into these. The guts of it are the design standards that include block frontages, site planning, building design, and these apply to non-residential and multifamily development. Next slide. And the approach to these is really just focusing on just those few critical design issues. We didn't want to get into too many things that added cost to construction because we know that's an important issue. We wanted to integrate some of the best practices. Our firm's been doing this for 25 years, and we've worked with about 70 communities. And so we've learned a lot over that time of things that work, things that don't work, try to making them clear, objective, and predictable, which is now a state requirement. And then having a lot of photo illustrations to help understand what is needed to meet the requirements. Also, what not to do, which is super important sometimes, and departures, which are an option to vary from the standards voluntarily. That occasionally there's a better idea of how to do something, provided it meets the intent. So it's not a variance; it's something that the applicants can simply just propose a different way to meet a standard. So block frontages, what does that mean? It means some of the standards that deal with the things that you see from the street. So that includes where the building's located, where it's oriented to, where the parking lot is, whether there's, again, an entry facing the street, things like that. And the idea there is to sort of reinforce the neighborhood patterns that you have, or in some cases to update them to the desired form that you want. And then the other part is allowing flexibility where you really need it and want it. So one thing is storefronts. You know, you've got several blocks of storefront patterns downtown. So we want to further emphasize that as downtown evolves. So these are in the red, the blocks where as new development comes in, they have to continue that pattern and have the transparent windows, weather protection, and the entries facing the street. Next slide. And then there you could see on the right, I'm not going to go through that. You can't read it anyway, but are an example, the guts of the standards. You know, what are the standards for building placement, building entries, how much facade transparency. Next slide. For other streets requiring a landscape setback, there's still some standards, like again, making sure that there's entry facing the street and a little bit of weather protection over the entry, and making sure that there's some landscaping in the setbacks, not all just paved. And then there's basic block frontages, which are the most flexible, which don't get into, you could put your parking lot in front of the building, for instance. It's flexible on those things. But if you want to put your building up near the street, then it says, okay, if you want to do that, then you need a little bit, you need some transparency, you need your entry facing the street. So overall, it allows a lot of flexibility. Next slide. In downtown, the standards downtown mostly focus on the block frontages, and they exempt mixed use buildings from the multifamily design standards because we want mixed use buildings. We've got retail on the ground floor and residential above. We're relaxing some of the standards as we want, as at least that's in the comprehensive plan, the desire to have those. Next slide. And so some other standards get into the site design, like side and rear setbacks for commercial multifamily development, residential open space for multifamily, and then the other typical stuff that you need to deal with for large sites like internal pedestrian access, vehicle circulation, service area, mechanical equipment provisions, site lighting, and those types of things. And then building design gets into the scale and the massing. If you've got a really big building, really big commercial or multifamily building, you need to do some things to break it up and not just have this gigantic box. Landscaping, some updated standards there. Get into plant material and installation standards. You already have some landscaping standards. The stuff in the bold are mostly where we've added some new standards to make those standards very clear. And then parking, we've made some updates there. A big thing with parking, a lot of cities have different parking standards for so many different uses. And what the problem is if you've got a strip mall and you're changing this use to that use, the parking standards may prevent that because they require more parking. So what this tries to do is just provide generally a consistent parking standard, so we don't get into, so the planning staff doesn't have to become the parking police and say, no, you can't put that nail salon in there. You know, it's more of the strip mall owner, he kind of works out what they want to do, but we want to have just more of a consistent standard across most commercial uses. So that's how that's set up. And, you know, so an example is one spot per 300 square feet. That applies to general service, medical office, personal service, retail. And again, if you just got a shell building and you don't know what the shops are yet, that's your standard. Let's just keep going to the next one. And then last but not least, we've done a big update to the sign code. And there's a lot of content there. And generally what we try to do is comply with some of the Supreme Court cases, which require content neutral standards. We've got some new standards that get into the types of sign illumination. Also trying to put some strategic limitations on those digital video type signs, allowing them, but with some limitations. So that kind of wraps up your draft code. So it should be online, invite people to dig into it, look at what's important to you all. And I know all the council members are going to read it from end to end.
Both the slides for tonight as well as the draft code are online.
Great.
Lisa, could you speak to what the process is moving forward? At what point will council members be able to follow up with more in-depth questions? I know we've got a hearing tonight and a lot on our.
Well, I would hope that they will come thus far, because we've had several workshops and we've discussed this for the last year. So I would have hoped that the questions would have come already, but we are planning on bringing the first reading of the code forward on October 9th. So that's the next council meeting. So I would say if you are, get them in, because you've had this for 3 months to get through. And I sent out emails. I haven't heard that there were any questions. So, in ASAP.
So I know I submitted a whole
Yes.
spreadsheet of
Yes.
things.
And yeah, they got those.
And going over, and I haven't waded through the entirety of this new draft, but I did get as far as the cottage requirements.
Mhm.
And whereas some of the multi-housing can be done with a minimum of 1 unit per 1,250 square feet, the way it's written up for cottages is that it's half of what the requirement is for a single family residential, which makes it 1 cottage per 2,500 square feet. Is my understanding of how that's written. And I would hope that it would be more in line with the other densities.
I believe it's one per the unit. Really, it's going to be impossible to max it out. You could almost just, so I believe if you're allowed up to 4 units, for instance, on a 5,000 square foot lot, because the cottages are smaller, they're up to, I believe, 1,200 square feet. You kind of get a 2-for-1 deal for cottages. So actually, I think it's 8. You could put 8 cottages instead of a fourplex on those, but it's going to be hard to fit it. On a 5,000 square foot lot, you're probably realistically only going to get, even getting 4 cottages is going to be hard because you got to have some open space. They're detached from each other. So it's, there might be some people who want to do it, but generally it's going to be, if a builder wants to make more money, they're probably going to choose to do triplexes because they're more efficient and attached.
Right.
But cottages are great, and a lot of people love them, and it's a nice niche product. So it's pretty permissive of it. So that's the approach we took.
The other concern I had was that it says that you can't separate, with cottages, you can't separate parking from the cottages with the open space between. And it seems like if the parking is going to be aggregated along, say, an alley, then could be a common space and then cottages, maybe in a horseshoe or whatever. But that, I don't understand why the parking is so prescriptive with that regard. And can we look at changing that?
Are you saying that allowing parking to be adjacent to the common open space?
Yes,
Okay, we'll take a look at that.
and I had a few other concerns, but I'll bring those to Lisa.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions from the council? Okay, thank you, Bob. I appreciate
Thank you.
We have a 2025 revenue projections. Presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to introduce Tara Dunsford, who is our accounting consultant who's been working with us for the last year. She'll be presenting our projected revenue projections for 2025.
Thank you. Good evening. This is really the kickoff to the 2025 budget process. It's a required step per state law, so we are at this time, being that this is really a precursor to council's decision on whether to increase property taxes this year. So your decision that will be coming to you in October and November will be to increase property taxes 0% or 1%. Interestingly, this has the smallest impact possible on the city's budget, but still an important step we must go through. So to start with the property taxes, I am projecting that council would increase taxes the full 1%. You see the actual percentage change is 1.1%. You might ask, why is that different? There was about $2,500 of new construction in 2024 that we didn't budget for. So that slightly makes the number bigger than 1%. Sales tax is the city's biggest revenue source in the general fund. This unfortunately is decreasing. So we're back to almost 2022 levels through August. We're going to get data to hopefully understand the story behind this a little bit more. But as of right now, we're projecting that 2025 numbers would be similar to 2024. So significantly lower than what we budgeted last year. Utility tax revenue is another item that you'll see decreasing quite substantially. Unfortunately, late in the 2024 budget process, we identified an accounting practice that was incorrect. Essentially, the city had been charging the utility funds twice for certain utility taxes. So when we identified that and corrected it, it obviously lowered the tax revenue to the general fund quite substantially. So that's why you're seeing a big decrease of $549,000 on the utility tax line. And the other substantial decrease to point out is in the grants line. We budgeted for a one-time grant reimbursement in 2024 related to a prior capital project that, like I said, was a one-time thing, so we would not expect it to continue or happen again in 2025. Other revenue sources are staying pretty steady. You'll notice interest revenue is going up substantially. If you look at prior year actuals, that's due to a couple different factors. One, obviously interest rates are increasing substantially. Two, we moved a substantial portion of the city's balances to the local government investment pool to gain more interest. And then lastly, council passed a resolution allowing all interest revenue to be credited to the general fund. The 2025 budget assumes that interest revenue will be the same as 2024. That may seem odd with interest rates going down, but we do have a big timber sale that should be occurring next year, which will substantially increase the balance available for investment and should hopefully balance out the decreasing interest rates. The overall change in general fund revenue is approximately $2.5 million. However, of that, the 1.7 million is the grant revenue that was really one time in nature, not built into the operating budget. So the true shortfall, if you will, on the revenue side is approximately 800,000. Why this is really important going into the budget process is that we know the city had a deficit budget of approximately $3 million in 2024. This $800,000 issue adds to that. So it's going to be a very, very difficult budget process this year on the revenue side of things. Unfortunately, council does not have a lot of options when it comes to additional revenue generation in the general fund. However, one thing that council could do is increase utility tax, and that is something that I highly recommend council consider doing this year and implementing effective 1/1 of 2025 so that we can try to balance this budget and continue to provide the services that are being provided. This is not being done to increase revenue or add services, but rather simply to maintain at the current level and avoid substantial cuts during this budget process.
One of the things that one of the things that you'll find attached to Tara's presentation are some comparables that we put together that compare the utility tax rates for our city in comparison to those nearby and those that are in comparable size. As you can see, the last utility tax rate, I believe that Tara was able to identify was done in 2014. So it's been 10 years and the city raised the utility tax rate from 2% to 4.5%. Cities use our taxes to fund operations. And this is one of those taxes that fund operations that includes all general funded operations, police, fire, parks, community development, courts. So this is one of those taxes that cities use to do that, to operate. As you can see, the city of Hoquiam is at 15% across the board. Cosmopolis is at 13%, and so on and so forth, down to Ridgefield, which is at 8% across the board. Our city is at 4.5%. The recommendation that we would like to bring, which would helps us substantially with the budget. We have a $3.5 million deficit that we're trying to face. This would bring in about $968,000, is a 5% increase, which would be approximately $6.20 to the utility bills. Again, I can't emphasize enough that we are making as many cuts as we can as we're looking at the budget. We're making targeted cuts. We are making revenue changes. We are already loaning out or selling our services to our police services to the city of Cosmopolis. We've signed a contract with fire marshaling services. We are trying to increase revenues everywhere that we can. And on top of it, as you can see, as Tara exemplified, that we have reduced sales tax. We have a lot of taxes that have dropped in the last year. So, any other directors would like to add anything? Please feel free as to talk about the impacts that this would have on your departments. Sure.
So over the last year in particular, most every council meeting we've had, the complaints we've been getting are really on loitering, homelessness, drug use, parking, and garbage. Those are the main big things. Those are all general fund activities that are supported from the general fund. So, and some of the impacts we're looking at are to police, and those are where most calls are. So we need to be mindful when we go through this. I think that those are the areas that we're trying to combat the most. And those are the areas that are, subject to some of your bigger cuts. And we've already, made a lot of cuts in our proposed budgets as departments. And, those areas that it could impact services, just because if we don't have enough manpower to be able to respond to those, which we have been doing, it's just a concern, because I know that you guys have heard a lot of that over the last year, couple of years in particular. And those are your biggest areas of complaints.
Rick Sander, Public Works Director. With regard to cutting services, there's no way that we really can't do that. If we're going to reduce general fund hit to street department, that comes at the cost of maintenance work. Maintenance work is general fund. What we're proposing is to take more of our TBD dollars and do more capital construction, which is sidewalks and roads. We'll be doing more. We're not doing the job, but the funding will be coming from a different source. And so, like right now, I have 2 guys in downtown every day picking up carts, picking up garbage, blowing the alleys. That's what they do all the time. And I don't know if people notice the difference, but I've noticed a huge difference. And what's going to change is we won't be able to do that because we won't have the funding source to pay for that maintenance. So I just want to adjust expectations, because I think we've gotten used to things being better, looking cleaner. And when I remove those guys, I just don't have the bodies to do it that I had. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, Danny Smith, the HR director. So every time that a person is arrested for a trespass charge, it costs the city from start to finish a minimum of $16,000 to get them from the processing all the way through the end. If they're appointed a public defender, up to $24,000. So we've had 9 a day lately. So that's just something else that impacts the general fund.
Thank you, Danny. Somebody have a question? Dale Green with the Aberdeen Police Department. I also wanted to comment. Our budget is 49% of the general fund, so it's by far the biggest part of the general fund. And as most of you can understand, we're generally not in a revenue generating mode. That's really not what the police department does. We don't get an opportunity to bill people for our services very often, other than, we're helping Cosmopolis or something like that. We brought in over $300,000 in grant material for our department every year. Unfortunately, that's not something we can rely on a year-by-year basis. So when the budget process started, I was asked to come up with options, just like the rest of the directors, somewhere of an option of 5% and 7% for us. And realistically, for the police department, that's just people. We don't have a lot of overhead. You've all seen our police station. A quarter of our police cars are used vehicles. We're running kind of on bare bones as it is. So we have currently 4 vacancies in police officer positions. And so what that looks like right now is, as we struggle to try to fill those positions, some things already are getting cut. We don't have a traffic officer any longer. He predominantly handles police calls now, regular 911 calls for service. And those are kind of extra positions that we would love to have and be able to, if we could, fill all of our positions, but it's really kind of a challenge right now in this current market. It takes us a year from the date of hire to get somebody trained and on the road. So that's another lag that we have as an agency, is it takes so long, and it costs about $103,000 from the day we offer somebody a job to the day that they are a solo police officer. So that takes a long time and a lot of money and a tremendous investment. So that's just something we're asking to consider too, is that, if we're looking at a major cut to our budget, then we'll have to sit down with the council, decide what your priorities are, and look what kind of services we might have to not respond to.
Stacy Barnum, Parks Director. I think what we're all trying to share with you is that we're not fluffing our budgets, with a lot of extra purchases. We really have, through the years, been taking a look at our budget, and we cut things from our budget each year. Myself, I was also asked to cut 5% from my budget. There are things that are out of my control that have increased. For example, 5 years ago, the Parks Department's portion of liability insurance was about $17,000. This year, it's $68,000. And that's with the Parks Department having average or below average claims. We also now have to pay water and sewer. Fortunately, we passed the new irrigation rate. That's gonna probably save $60,000 to $80,000. But the spray park, that's not an irrigation rate. Just to run the spray park 1 month, it's $8,000 for a water bill that we didn't have 2 years ago. So there are things that are increasing, costs. And as Ruth pointed out, we're way behind the other cities in collecting the taxes that we need to cover the costs for the services and operations that we provide. So I hope you guys take that into consideration as you work through the budget process. Thank you.
And I do want to add one more thing too, that I didn't mention the first time I had a chance to speak. Frequently I do hear that, departments have ballooned and, hired more people and expanded. And I want to let you know that, we're budgeted for 38 police officers, and it's the same number we've had since 1979. So this isn't something that we're trying to have an ask where we're trying to, hire more officers or anything like that. We're just trying to keep our heads above water. Our call load, Councilmember Morrison will give a report very soon. We're averaging nearly 100 calls per day. So that's a lot, and that's doubled in my 27 years here. So our services are needed, and so we're just looking for some guidance from the council.
So,
And-
sorry. So what we're asking today is that you consider a 5% increase. That's what we would like to bring that back to you at the next meeting. And so.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dave. Shoot, I'm so sorry, Dave.
Gee. Guess I know where I stand. So, the fire department, we are a little unique. Again, as you recall, we do have the two budgets we work out of, the general fund fire and the EMS. Again, just like the police department, we're not very revenue heavy on the general fund fire side. We can't really shift personnel over into EMS because of how the grade structure is built. So our hands are tied in that respect there. Excuse me, but looking at our budget, again, yeah, we are mainly personnel. So we're looking at having to really reduce programming services outside of our mandated stuff as a fire department. And really what that means is public education and training. Those are gonna be my two big things that I'm gonna have to do without. And when we talk about the public education outreach, that includes the summer fire program. We can't afford that. That is a lot of manpower and overtime to run that program. Pub ed in the schools will have to suffer as well. So those types of programs, we won't be able to do because it's not, number one, mandated, it's a like for us, so.
And one last thing, the city is hemorrhaging money in different ways that we provide free services to the community. For those of you who aren't aware, when there are events downtown, the city hasn't been charging for all of the public works workers that have to go in and close all of the streets, all of the police officers that are provided for that. That's a service that we provide them. Those are the types of ways that we've been losing money that we've been trying to give back to the community and make sure, because people are paying through their taxes. Well, now we're coming back and saying, we would like to continue to offer those things to the community, but this is the only way that we can do it. We would have to raise taxes in order to make sure that we continue to provide services and programs and those little luxuries to to those people that put on community events as well.
Anything else from the directors? Move it. Okay, so I'll let you guys go, and then I'm gonna say something. Okay, if you were Bruce, go ahead, Liz.
So I just want to clarify, that by increasing the utility rates 5%, we would be going from 4.5% to 9.5%, which puts us in line with Centralia, but well below Cosmopolis and Hoquiam.
Correct.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I guess I'm not 100% clear. Administrator Clemens, did you need a motion that we have this brought before council for first reading at the next council meeting, or is that just gonna be a matter of course?
I would just like some direction, yeah.
I would so move that, for the next council meeting, we bring an ordinance for first reading to increase utility rates by not less than 5%.
Second.
You have a second? Is there any discussion?
Obviously, you know, we didn't increase the EMS rate, utility rate. And, you know, it costs a certain amount of money just to operate and run the business of the city. And the revenues just aren't keeping pace with the cost of what it costs to operate the city. So we really need to, I know people don't like to see tax increases, but it costs money, so.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to also say, you know, nothing against previous administrations, but I've asked this not the council, but the directors, and I really want us to have a balanced budget. I think we've been feeding off of money as a city that really came about because of the fire. Eventually, we're going to run out of money. This can't go on forever. You know, if you go to the store to buy a candy bar and it's $1, they're not going to let you pay with 60 cents and then just put in the rest. And eventually, I mean, somebody has to pay for the candy bar. And I saw what happened with the EMS. And what I see is that we tend to be so worried about our few that can't pay this increase, that we're allowing the whole city to not pay the increase when we should be voting in these increases, because we have to be fiscally responsible. We can't just willy-nilly run around, you know, spending money. So, so with the EMS, we decided to stick with the lower version to help those few citizens that needed that help, rather than just make everybody pay what they should be paying, and then individually help those that need the help, because that's really not a huge portion of our population. So I'm asking you guys, it's like $6. So I just want to make sure that you guys understand it's not that much, and we're so far behind everybody else that I mean, maybe other councils have thought it was okay to run feeding off of our general fund, but I don't believe that we should continue that. I had some things on the list I really wanted.
Mr. Mayor, we have a motion on the floor.
Okay, so I got rid of my stuff because I want this, I really believe that this is important that we, so, any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Wow.
Thank you. It passes.
And Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I have a question. I think this is for Director Sanger. It pertains to the timber sale. Would that question come to you?
During bit of your order.
I'm sorry.
During bit of the order.
This is under discussion for revenue projections.
Is this the timber sale this year or the timber sale next year?
Well, that's the question. Is during finance committee, we were talking about the possibility that, you know, the timber sale could bring in a substantial amount of money, that even though those funds wouldn't go to the general fund, the funds that would come in from the sale could be invested as part of the investment pool, and we could earn some interest income, which would be really helpful. It'd be substantial in the coming year.
Right.
Are we anticipating for this coming year a timber sale? Is that actually going to occur? There was a question about whether it would happen or not.
We had a good discussion about that today. And there's two timber sales. First one was for this year, $1.5 million projected, came in at 3.2. So very high. Next year, we have to improve our roads and our bridges and our watershed. And we have to do that to become a large timber seller. And we're working on that right now. So we can't sell all the timber, as our forester tells us we need to, until our roads and our bridges are improved. And we're trying to get there. It is our intent to have the big timber sale next year. The projection on that timber sale is $25 million. But that goes to the water department reserves. But what can happen is, if the bond rates hold and the percentages are right, the timber stays at a high rate. We can invest that into bonds, and the interest off of that timber reserve can go to the general fund. All interest money can go to the timber. And they, at one time, that was projected at about $1 million a year without ever hurting or jeopardizing our water department reserve. So there's just so many things that are variable right there. We don't know what the bond rates are gonna hold. We don't know what the timber rate is gonna, or the timber sale market is gonna hold. But we are doing everything we can to make sure that timber sale happens next year.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm curious, you were mentioning about improving roads and bridges and such. Is that for access into the timberland area?
Yeah, so when we were a small timber seller, we're small timber. We didn't have to improve all of our roads and bridges at one time. So we had a number of things on the list and we've been knocking them off. Every year, the amount that we needed to get into the access to the parts of the forest that we needed to log. Now we're looking at the idea is to cut all the big timber, because what's happening is all the big mills that handle the big timber are going away. And they don't have enough timber to keep running as in a viable situation. So if we keep waiting, we're not gaining anything on this. The idea is to get it to market and replant it so it's a renewable resource. We've had the same size timber in our forest for 35 years. If we would have cut it 35 years ago, it'd be about ready to cut again. So it's just trying to manage the forest better.
So with the funds that would be required to upgrade bridges and roads and such, would that come from some of the proceeds of the sale or?
It was in the budget this year, $1.5 million. We're using that money this year in this budget to work on that.
All right, so I guess it comes down to the real nitty gritty question is, what is the probability, I guess, of the $25 million sale in the coming year?
The probability of starting it is good. The probability of getting all 25 million is not good, because it's gonna be later in the year and it's not all gonna be down. It's gonna be one of those, it's a huge amount of timber. And it's gonna take more than just a normal 2 or 3 months for a timber sale.
Thank you.
Now we're gonna go, now we'll go down to community service results. There's survey results on fluoride.
Thank you, Mayor. In June, we opened up a survey for, sorry, Becca. In June, we opened up the survey. The council had wanted to understand the community's desires to remove fluoride from our drinking water. So we opened up a survey on June 28th and it was closed on July 31st, giving the community about a month to respond. First question that we asked was, which ward do you live in? The greatest number of respondents came from Ward 4. We did ask people who own a business in Aberdeen. We included them as well. We added that. We also added people who do not live in Aberdeen but receive Aberdeen water. That includes people out at Wishkah, as well as Cosmopolis. We added, I do not live in Aberdeen. And those who indicated that they don't live in Aberdeen or don't fit into this were not allowed to take the survey. About 243 people indicated that they do. So the majority of the people that responded said that they are aware that the city of Aberdeen adds fluoride to its drinking water. And whether they had concerns, 159 said no and 118 said yes. If the person indicated that they did have concerns, they went to the next question, which was, what are your concerns with fluoride in the drinking water? With 84 of the respondents, which was the great majority of them, saying the health risks. We asked, where do you get information on your fluoride? And 133 indicated that they received their information from medical professionals. In second place was the Department of Health, and 34 indicated that they received their information from internet resources. With only 2 saying that they also, the lowest was social media, and only 2 people indicated social media. What would you like? Would you like the city of Aberdeen to remove fluoride from its drinking water? 158 said no and 119 said yes. I broke this information down by ward. Ward 1 had yes was the answer that came out of Ward 1. Ward 2 said no. Ward 3 said no. As you can see, some of these are close, like in Ward 3. Ward 4 was an overwhelming no. Ward 5 was a yes. And Ward 6 was a no. So only 2 wards indicated that they did not, that they wanted fluoride removed from their water source. Business owners, they're all the business owners that replied said that they did not want fluoride removed from their water. Outside city limits, we had about 12 people say that they wanted fluoride removed and 10 replied no. So we wanted to also understand how people heard about the survey, with Facebook being the top way that people received this information or received information about the survey. We also put it on the city's website. We also sent out a press release. So this, and the second place was 54 people with who had heard from family or friends. The radio also announced it. We also sent it to some of the radio stations as well. So those are the survey results. It will be brought forward to all of you next meeting on October 9th for a vote, whether or not to remove fluoride from the drinking water. So I wanted to share those with you. Those are also in your agenda packets. I'm also happy to provide any other more like in-depth information on this. Thank you. Oh, yes, sorry.
I also brought flyers that the Department of Health wanted me to hand out, and they're at the back of the room. So if anybody wants to look at the Department of Health flyer that we had to provide for everybody for information, it's at the back of the room as well.
Any council members have any questions? Okay, let's move on to public comments then. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Start with your name and your ward or your address and be respectful.
We do have a public hearing on fluoride, so if your comment is in regards to fluoride, please save it for the public hearing.
Oh, so not right now.
Yeah, that'll be during the public hearing for.
By mistake. Yeah.
Sorry.
All right.
Thank you. Back to.
Hi, my name's Lynette. I believe I'm in Ward 2. I only have two things. One, I was under the assumption that the homeless people were not allowed to camp on benches and things to that effect. And I was wondering why something hasn't been done for the one that's over there across from the library near Key Bank. And it's there, started out with one woman sitting in a chair, and now there's probably about 15 people, and it's right by a bus stop.
I'll talk to you about that.
Okay. The other one, I had someone ask me, her name is Sally Forbes, and she lives on Marion Street and Exchange. Okay, right across the street from her are probably 12 to 15 cars and motorhomes where the homeless people are living. There's tons of garbage. I've been down there. It's disgusting looking. And drugs are going on there. And she's wondering why this hasn't been taken care of. And that was it. Oh, and the other thing was when he said that he had 2 people that went out and got, you know, the carts and that. I'd be glad to volunteer on the weekends. I work all week until 11 o'clock at night. But on the weekends, I'll be glad to pick up shopping carts. I used to do it all the time. Put them in the back of my truck and take them to the stores. But I also was under the assumption that the stores were supposed to go out and collect their own. And so I feel sorry for the people that have to go out there and do it because the stores are not owning up to their own responsibilities. That's it.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Janice. I'm one of the librarians at the Aberdeen Timberland Library. I believe we're Ward 4. Just wanted to let everyone know, I hope you remember my manager, Victoria, at the last city council meeting. Our Positively Perfect reading program is now officially completely booked. It was probably booked in about 2 days. So that is a success. We're very excited. But just wanted to remind everyone that this weekend, we actually have our STEAM Saturday for kids. It's in the Rosalie Spellman Meeting Room, and every month it's a different STEAM activity, and it's between 2 and 3 p.m. So this Saturday. And finally, just wanted to remind everyone, not sure if anyone knows, but you can check out robots at the Aberdeen Timberland Library with any regular card. They help kids learn how to code. So it's pretty cool. Thank you.
Any other public comments? All right, then we'll move on to the consent agenda with Council President Swan.
I'd like to make a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda, which includes the minutes from the September 11th meeting, accounts payable and payroll.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes. All right, mayor's report. I just wanted let you guys know that there was a wonderful grand opening for this building, the Tulual Center. It's a beautiful building anyway. It was a wonderful reception they had. Massive cookies that I couldn't even eat the whole one. So anyway, it was a wonderful. We basically, by the college providing their building this building, our city has gained the convention center. And we're not as big as the Ocean Shores Convention Center, but we can actually have events in our city now that can have 350 to 400 people, which is that's pretty impressive. So it's a wonderful building. And if you haven't had a tour of the building, they have people that will do that for you. And it just offers so much to our community. And I'm really thankful that they acknowledged the first people that had this land before we got here. So that's my report. Now we go on to council reports. Any council with reports?
Yeah, I've got some.
Yeah.
I just want to give a shout out to the Public Works. They went and cleaned up the boat launch in South Aberdeen. It's pretty nice right now. They made lots of parking and they covered up all the holes that would swallow your cars up, and it's really nice now. So thank you.
Ditto. Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks. Anybody else? No? Okay, so we'll move on to staff reports with start off with the city administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. The directors and I have been working, along with Tara, have been working very hard to piece together the budget. It's been a very, very difficult process with a lot of different scenarios that we've been trying to play out. So that's what our main focus has been. I was able to take a tour. I was invited to take a tour of the Coastal Interpretive Center out in Ocean Shores. To get a great example of like a museum and an interactive museum at that. But I think that there are some future partnerships that we could definitely look into with the Coastal Interpretive Center. I would like to encourage any of you that would like to take a tour of the center to please let me know, and I'm happy to set up a time with their executive director, Jacob Baker, who is new to the position and doing a great job. So like I said, I think there's an opportunity to host some of their items, I think, in our museum or in our new library. So, yeah, so and that's pretty much all we're reporting tonight on. Is any questions? Thank you.
And I also wanted to thank you and Tara and the directors, because I know you guys have really been stressing and working really hard over this budget. And it's a big thing. It's the biggest thing we got going. So I really appreciate all the work you guys are doing. Right. Directors, Director Scott.
Thank you. I just, there was a press release issued, last week. And I just want to share some of the positive, because I know when we get heavy into, revenue projections and budget cuts and increase in taxes, it was a real positive win for the city of Aberdeen. Where we had a developer that was coming in and bought the South Shore Mall and is doing a green light manufacturing plant there where they're gonna be using a lot of robotics. And then within the next 3 years, we project 300 new jobs. And that's pretty incredible, especially as, some things have been ramping down for employment. This is a big win for all of Grays Harbor. So, just thanks for all your support as we move forward, and we're just really excited that this is a great opportunity.
Yeah, it is a great opportunity. And just, I mean, those aren't minimum wage jobs that they're gonna offer either. So it's a really good thing for South Aberdeen and for the whole city. Thank you. Any other directors? Director Barton?
The positive is the dog park is very popular, so it gets a lot of use, but unfortunately, we're gonna have to close it for a month for maintenance. So October 7th through November 7th, we'll be reseeding and hydroseeding the dog park so that we have some good turf for the winter for all the dogs. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other directors? Okay, let's move on to staff. Oh, wait a minute, let's see here. Oh, okay, request for council action for finance chair, Cedar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, under finance, we have a public hearing. This is the date set for a public hearing on the 2025 revenue sources. That's what we went over earlier here tonight. And I move that we open the public hearing.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, public hearing is now open. Any comments?
Les Bolton, Ward 4. 5% increase. I'm retired. I'm living on Social Security. And I think the city is great. Every time, I mean, when I need the police, they're there. Thank God I haven't needed EMS, but I know that they would be there. If I have a problem with the water or anything else, I get response. This is a good city. I don't want to pay more taxes, but 5%, you should do that. We got a $3.5 million problem, and I don't want you cutting services so that you make my life worse. Let's keep those services going, and I would encourage you turn down the EMS rate increase. Add that $17.50 and create a program where if you are at or below the federal poverty level, you're exempt from paying that increase. And that, I mean, it's not gonna hook everybody in, but it brings in all the people that are renters, not just the property owners. So that's it. Keep up the good work.
Will we close the public hearing?
Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, public hearing is closed.
Mr. Mayor, we have first reading of Bill 2406 and ordinance amending AMC 5.10.070 relating to application fees, required application fees. This is for renewal of business licenses. And I move we approve this first reading.
Been moved in second. Is there any discussion? Councilperson Cedar?
So the city of Aberdeen, here's another way that we have been unusually generous to the population, our local constituents and citizens, is when you have a business in the city, you were only required to buy a business license once or to pay the fee for it. And that was it. It was a lifetime business license. Now we're proposing to make it an annual renewal, and you'd have an annual renewal fee for your business license. Most cities require annual renewals and an annual fee to be paid. The city of Aberdeen hasn't been doing this, so it's time we start, these are little ways like this that the city can raise some revenue to be able to do what we really need to do as priorities, to provide good, efficient, and valuable police and fire resources, et cetera.
Thank you. Council. Director,
Yeah, so the city was only also charging $25 for a lifetime business license. What we're proposing here is $50 for the new license and $50 for renewal as well. Those are standard across the board. I provide comparables in the request for council action form.
Thank you. I know in California, mine was in the hundreds every year. I thought this was such a great deal, and $50 is still a great deal. All right. No more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Now we'll move on to public safety with chairperson. Oh, she's not here.
Well, she's gone tonight. In the interest of time, because I know we have a public hearing and an executive session, we're going to shorten up the report a bit and just go to agenda items. So tonight, our first item on the agenda is a request from Public Safety recommending that the city council authorize the mayor to execute the fire protection services agreement between the city of Aberdeen and Terry and Melissa Cost for the provision of fire protection services. I move we adopt this report.
Is there any discussion? Councilor Ellis?
Yes, I'm very concerned about this request coming to council from one of the 6 residences in this little portion of currently county property. To have one of the 6 come to us and ask for an agreement for fire services, I think is the wrong way to go. I'd much rather see us say no to this proposed agreement and ask them to come back to us with a request to annex so that those 6 property owners pay property taxes like all other Aberdeen citizens and property owners, and they get the full range of services that we offer. $300 some would not even cover the cost of one call if we had to respond. And I think this is a bit of the cart before the horse. And so I'm recommending that we don't vote to approve this.
Chief Golding, would you like to respond?
Yes, thank you. So to answer your comment there, annexation was brought up as our preferred method of getting service, not only to this individual, but that entire area. There is no desire of that area to do such a thing. So we defaulted back to this one-off, if you will, to this individual who borders the city as our one contract that we could do for this gentleman. And this gentleman was wanting to do this. So annexation, like I said, was the initial recommendation to him in the area, but he would be the only one in that whole area that wanted to do it. And it's going to take all of them. Lisa, I don't recall, what's the percentage?
65% of the assessed value is for that. So we've been working with Mr. Cost for quite a while, actually. And he's willing and would be willing to annex, but it makes utterly no sense just to do one little, space. The rest of the citizens weren't interested in annexation. However, if their insurance is set up, coming up for renewal, they may change their mind, because what they're finding is that insurance companies are not insuring those areas that don't necessarily have, don't have fire protection. They're finding it a struggle. So right now, he's up against that. The rest of them eventually were, and as Chief Golding mentioned, that is our preferred alternative, but this was a short course to get him to where he needed to be in order to be insured.
Councilperson Cedar.
I appreciate that information because I think some erroneous information came out in the finance committee meeting. We talked about this, where it was believed or it was represented that Mr. Koss was the one who did not want annexation and the other five did. So it's really good, because I was going to agree with Councilmember Ellis and I was going to oppose voting for this, but now I would agree to support passing this for the costs and but still to see what we can do to encourage all 6 residents of that little pocket area to work towards annexation into the city limits.
Yeah, and to speak to that, you're correct, it was the other way around, yeah, he was willing, but the others were not. I do have some information I've got put together, I'm going to be sending to the rest of those residents, just to let them know, here's your options. And that way they're informed, and then they can make the decision on themselves if, as a group, to come in, and, because it's gonna take them as a group, and we can't just go in and say, we're gonna annex you. You know, they've got to approve it, so.
Okay, any other discussion? Councilperson Taylor.
So they were wanting to pay how much? What was it? 300?
Like,
Yeah, the rate that we came up is, today, I don't have it right in front of me, 375-ish, 350, right in there. Annually, that will adjust annually based on what the average fire district levy rate is in the county. Applied to his assessed valuation by the county of his parcels. We want that because we don't have a mechanism to be able to really say, a citizen Aberdeen is paying X number of dollars per thousand for fire protection, because it's all jumbled into the general fund. So that was the easiest and acceptable way. We figured that if he was in a fire district, that's what he would be paying on an average. That's where that number came up.
So what if, when the other people come up against the idea of the insurance, where they have to get it, what would stop them from just saying, hey, let's do the 350, 375?
This is the one contract we're doing. That's when we decided to do this, talking with Administrator Clemens as the fire department. I'm willing to do this one because he came to us, he borders the city. The rest of them, they want to do this, no, it's annexation at that point.
Okay.
I'm not going to be doing 15 different contracts that have to manage, that's.
Okay, thank you.
Councilperson Ellis.
So just to clarify, is this contract renewable automatically?
It is set up to renew every year automatically, but can be terminated by either side with notice.
I see. Thank you.
And I might add, if he sells his house, that terminates the agreement. It's only with him as the current homeowner.
I just have a question. If the properties around it eventually became annexed, would the contract still stand and he'd get it for the 300, even though they're, and how would that play out if the annex did go through with this contract?
Yeah, so the contract is written to, if that area is annexed, the contract would then terminate, and he's just part of the city because he would no longer need the contract. Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
1 no, it passes.
And we have a request from Public Safety recommending that the city council authorize the mayor to execute an interlocal agreement between the cities of Aberdeen and Montesano for the provision of fire marshal services for Montesano's Learning to Grow building project. I move we adopt this report.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes.
And a request from Public Safety recommending that the city council approve the surplus of the APD motorcycle vehicle 381. I move we adopt this report.
Is there any discussion?
Is it a Harley?
Yeah.
No, 2009 Honda.
Oh, okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
And a resolution establishing the Aberdeen Opioid Abatement Council. I move we adopt this resolution.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
The resolution 2024-18.
Mr. Mayor, if I may expound on that just a little bit. I did get some clarity that those meetings will be open to the public. They will be quarterly meetings and they will be providing reports to the council.
Thank you. All right. Now let's move on to Public Works with their chairperson Lawrence.
Thank you, Mayor. Our first up is public hearing on removal of fluoride. I move that we adopt or open this public hearing.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? No. One opposed. The public hearing is now open. Are there any public comments now about fluoride?
Is now the right time?
Yeah. Come on up. Limiting these to 3 minutes also. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm very tall, so I'll try and scoot this up a little bit. But I did time myself, so I think I should fit into that. My name is Scott Rowley. I actually live in Olympia, but I've lived in Grace Harbor for a good portion of my life. I'm here tonight to encourage the city of Aberdeen to maintain water fluoridation in the city's water supply. I'm speaking from both my professional perspective as a board-certified pediatric dentist that treats many Grace Harbor children, and a dedicated supporter of the harbor since I was raised in Hoquiam. I've spent many years living in Aberdeen and Hoquiam, and in fact, I'm even an alumni of Grace Harbor College where we're speaking at tonight. In 2004, I opened a dental office called Grace Harbor Pediatric Dentistry, which operated in Aberdeen until 2007. My start-off office was immediately very busy with the heavy need of care, but extremely taxing, dealing with the additional issues that come with helping a vulnerable population. Missed appointments, obtaining proper consent for children in foster care, not following instructions of no food or drink before sedation, and scheduling interpreters, to name a few, led me to experience a high level of stress with subsequent desire to find a better balance. In 2007, I joined a group pediatric dental practice in Olympia, which allowed me to find a better balance of treating patients from all backgrounds, but still save time to provide expert help to those that need our specialized care the most. Dental caries is the most common childhood disease, approximately 5 times more common than asthma. In our Olympia office, we treat children that are referred to us from approximately 5 counties, including Grace Harbor. In fact, just this morning, I saw a 3-year-old Aberdeen resident referred to us from the Aberdeen CMAR Dental Clinic who had cavities on 14 out of 20 teeth. Children often require sedation for care. This boy will need to have care with general anesthesia. Why? Because if not addressed, he will likely end up with a swollen face at the emergency department. The number one reason a child presents to Seattle Children's Hospital with a swollen face is a tooth abscess. Of the roughly 50 children per month we treat with sedation, the vast majority of these have the state Medicaid system as their primary payer source. This specialized treatment, when done correctly and safely, is not only difficult to access in an expert setting, but also costly for the state taxpayers and brings an increased level of risk for managing a preventable disease. Community water fluoridation is a simple, low-risk, cost-effective way to help Aberdeen's vulnerable children. The benefits greatly outweigh the risks and are abundantly evident in well-recognized scientific journals. Community water fluoridation is supported by the American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry, the American Dental Association, to name a few. I urge you not to just take my word for it, but I suggest reviewing peer-reviewed research on community water fluoridation, and I actually have some handouts tonight, which I'll leave in the back, that talk about the state of dental health here in Aberdeen. If I can read 4 more sentences, I'll be done.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, in any case, I hope that you'll consider it, because I do consider Aberdeen a leader, like Centralia, Chehalis, and Montesano. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Did you say you had a question?
There's no question.
Oh, okay.
Can talk to them afterwards. Is there anybody else that'd like to come on and talk?
My name is John Bosher. I've been your health officer for the past 40 years, practiced in Aberdeen for the last 45 years. During this time, I've had somewhere in the neighborhood of 250,000 patient encounters. I was here before chloride was instituted in the water supply of Aberdeen. And coming from a university setting where fluoride was encouraged, I was a little overwhelmed about the amount of pediatric dental caries that I saw. During the time the fluorination has taken place in this city, I've seen a marked reduction in the caries, not elimination. As Dr. Rowley pointed out, there are a lot of variables that we can't control as clinicians. But the one we can, and one that we can be responsible for as a community, is help those that can help themselves, and that's the children. So I encourage you to continue the fluorination in the city water. Otherwise, I think the consequences may be quite great. Thank you.
Howdy, I'm Jonathan Henry. I drove down here 4 hours through Seattle traffic from Bellingham. Bellingham does not have fluoride in their water. I'm a dentist. I work for a community health center in Bellingham. I treat those patients every day. I'm gonna drive home tonight because I'm gonna go to work tomorrow and fix those kids' teeth. I came down here because you all have the primo amount of fluoride in your water already. It is perfect. I wish Bellingham had it. I lived in Linden, also Linden, just north of Bellingham. Over the past year, I dove into this topic because I had to convince that city council to keep their fluoride, and they're keeping it. It's the right thing to do for their people. I beg you, I drove down here 4 hours and I'm going to drive home 4 hours. Leave it alone. It's the right thing to do. It doesn't just help the kids, it helps the elderly. When you're elderly, when you live in a nursing home, you get cavities on the roots of your teeth. You have a hard time brushing your teeth and you start to break teeth, and your cavities will lead to those teeth getting failures, and you get infections, and the rest of your body suffers, and you get anorexia when you lose your teeth, and you die younger when you're in a nursing home and you don't have your teeth. The fluoride in the water helps those cavities. It prevents those cavities. It helps adults. It helps children. It helps the elderly. It really helps the poor kids. It helps everybody in town, even people who come to visit. If you go to a restaurant and you drink that water, it helps your teeth. There's no side effects. 0.6, like you all have, there's no side effects. Anybody who comes in here and claims they have research that the fluoride is bad, they're not talking about 0.6 parts per million. They're talking about above 1.5. That's where the evidence is, and the US government knows that. You might hear about a lawsuit. The US government's talking about fluoride right now. The harm is when you're above 1.5. You guys have 0.6. That is awesome. There's nothing to fear. There's nothing to worry about. I'm here to give you assurance. This is an excellent thing for your people. I wish Bellingham would do it. Thank God Linden kept it. The city of Spokane is considering adding it because it saves so much money. Cavities are preventable. When you have the right amount of fluoride in your water, it's a game changer. It's like the offensive line for your football team. If you lose that, your quarterback can't do anything else. I can teach people how to brush their teeth, but I can't put fluoride in the water. You guys can. Please do the right thing for your people. I wish you would ask me some questions. I drove 4 hours down here. I could tell you everything about this topic. I'm a public health dentist. I know everything about this topic, and I've heard it all. I've been fighting it up in Linden for a year. Thank God they're keeping it. And I'm working to help Bellingham get it. They're going to maybe do it too. It's a good thing. The city of Dallas, Texas fought this for a year. They had a whole panel of experts come in, and then they had a whole panel of anti-fluoride come in. And the city of Dallas, who has 7 million people, they kept their fluoride. you guys don't have to feel like you have to figure this question out. The rest of America already knows it's the right thing to do. Please leave it alone. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Hello, I'm Stephen Rupert. I live out the Wichita, so I'm not sure what ward. I don't think that's a ward, but as a business owner, I believe I'm in Ward 4, maybe. Anyway, so obviously I already said that I'm Stephen Rupert. I've been a dentist in Aberdeen since 2011 when I joined my dad, who grew up here, and has been a dentist here since 1975. I am joined today by many local dental health professionals. There's hygienists, there's assistants, there's dentists, there's pediatric dentists here that all serve you and your families. Furthermore, I'd like to point out that both the Grays Harbor Board of Health and the Washington State Dental Association have both submitted letters in support of maintaining fluoridation in Aberdeen's municipal water. I grew up, live, and work in Aberdeen, and obviously I'm in support of maintaining fluoride in the water that myself, as well as my friends and family, consume. Fluoridation of water is absolutely American, and I want to make it clear that whether you're red or blue, over 75% of the American population safely consumes fluoridated water, and furthermore, that all American military bases have fluoridated water systems. The benefits of fluoride were even discovered in the United States. Due to the presence of natural fluoride in the spring water consumed in Colorado Springs, there's an associated significant reduced rate of dental decay. Fluoride occurs naturally in water. All that fluoridation does is to balance and idealize the fluoride level. This turns out to be the same parts per million that occurs in the seawater that is all around us here, and that the clams and the seafood and all the things that we consume and harvest in Grays Harbor live in. My father and I have seen and cared for the children's teeth of Grays Harbor for almost 50 years, and I am here to tell you that it is one of the safest and most significant public health advances that exists, despite fringe opinions and false science saying otherwise. Furthermore, after reviewing the online survey that Administrator Clemens reviewed, I just want to remind the council that they are here as elected positions that require you to represent your constituents regardless of your personal beliefs. Thank you.
You. Anybody else?
Hello, my name's Callie White. I live in Ward 4, and you've heard from a lot of the dentists today, but I am a mom. And so I would like to say, as a mother, one of the things I am in charge of is my children's dental hygiene. I make the appointments for them to go see dentists. I make sure that we have a dentist we can go to. And I'm going to tell you, it's going to be harder for me to get my kids to go to the dentist if they're full all the time fixing people's cavities. I don't know if you are aware how hard it is to find a dental professional who will take care of you within a 20-mile radius around here. It's really tough. And we need to keep them as open to taking as many appointments as they can and not deal with these medical emergencies that are preventable. If we prevent 1 to 2 cavities, a year with the fluoride, which it's definitely more, you're going to see people who are more able to access the dental health care that they need, just going in for their regular hygienic checkups, their dental cleanings, and, for bigger emergencies, those two. I grew up drinking fluoride, and I would like to give my capitalist bona fides by saying I used to work for the Chamber of Commerce. And I love this country. I love capitalism. Fluoride hasn't hurt me in any way. And please keep the fluoride in the water. Thank you.
Yes.
You have 2 online as well.
Yeah, after this one. Oh, but go ahead, please.
My name is Emily Furman, and I actually come here. I'm a mom as well. I come here from Seattle. I have a public health degree out of UW. And I have seen many communities have this discussion. And I just wanted to have this opportunity to say that prematurely removing fluoride would undermine decades of progress in public health that you've seen here in Aberdeen, especially when it comes to access to dental services, which are limited in Grays County, as you just heard. Proven dental benefits of fluoridation are that they'll reduce cavities by 25%, and that's for the whole population. And this spares families, businesses, and taxpayers from the burden of expensive dental care costs. It's especially beneficial for children and seniors and families, anyone who experiences barriers to getting dental care or visits. And there's no replacement for fluoridation. It's the only thing that we have that really works across the whole community. It doesn't matter where you live, as long as you have access to drinking water, you can drink that fluoridated water and it will improve your health. In cities that remove fluoridation, including Juneau and Calgary, residents reported significant increases in cavities, higher public health spending on oral health, and overall dental care costs. Calgary took it out and they decided to put it back in because of those results. As national regulators continue to review the science on a national level, this United States, we have a process for doing this. And they look at the research and they try to strike a right balance to protect our health. I implore Aberdeen, the council, to exercise restraint and maintain your fluoridation. Oral health is part of overall health. It's very important. I grew up in Yakima. I have a lot of, half the city was not fluoridated. The other half was naturally fluoridated. I lived on the half that wasn't fluoridated. I had a lot of cavities. My son is growing up in Seattle, 0 cavities. And of course, I've got experience now in oral public health. I can do the things that kids need, brush their teeth, all those things, but we also have access to fluoridation. And I hope Aberdeen can continue to have that same access.
Terry Radrick, Ward 2. I'm reading a letter that was signed by several physicians up at Summit Pacific Medical Center. I also believe that Administrator Clemens has a copy of this for the council to read. Dear council members, I am writing to express concern about a proposal that would end water fluoridation in Aberdeen. Our primary care and family medicine residency teams are deeply concerned about the negative impact that such a proposal would have on the health of children and adults. Although dental health has improved for many Americans in recent decades, tooth decay remains the most common chronic childhood disease, 5 times more prevalent than asthma. Untreated tooth decay can undermine children's ability to sleep, grow, and learn. The ultimate impact can last for many years by hurting their ability to find jobs as adults. Decay and other dental problems can cause a person's overall health to suffer. As you may know, fluoride exists naturally in water. Fluoridation is simply the process of adjusting fluoride to the optimal level to prevent tooth decay. Fluoride counteracts tooth decay and strengthens teeth by fighting harmful acids and drawing calcium back into the enamel. Drinking water is an ideal vehicle for fluoride because it offers these benefits without requiring families to spend extra money or change their routine. Studies show that fluoridation reduces tooth decay by an average of 29%. People of all ages benefit from drinking fluoridated water. The proposal to stop fluoridating a water supply is often informed by inaccurate and misleading information. Much of this unreliable information comes from a handful of websites. A 2012 New York Times report demonstrated that conspiracy theories about fluoridation now thrive online, where anyone with a little help from Google can suddenly become a medical authority, end quote. The nation's medical and health experts endorse water fluoridation. The American Academy of Pediatrics, American Dental Association, Mayo Clinic, American Medical Association, and many other respected medical or health organizations recognize the health benefits of fluoridation. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention called water fluoridation one of the, quote, 10 great public health achievements of the 20th century, end quote. The safety concerns raised by anti-fluoride groups ignore or misrepresent the scientific evidence. Here are 2 examples. Fluoride opponents often cite a 2006 report by the National Research Council to purport that fluoridated water is dangerous. The focus of the NRC report was on people living in areas of the U.S. with natural levels of fluoride in water that are at least double or triple the level used to fluoridate a public water system. Nothing in the NRC report cast doubt on the safety of fluoride at the recommended optimal level. The NRC explicitly stated that its concerns, quote, do not apply to the lower water fluoride levels commonly experienced by most U.S. citizens, end quote. The other example, opponents claim that fluorosis is a reason to oppose water fluoridation. Fluorosis is a change in the appearance of the tooth enamel that occurs when children consume too much fluoride. Nearly all fluorosis in the U.S. is a mild cosmetic condition that leaves faint white streaks on teeth. Mild fluorosis is so subtle that only a dentist is likely to identify it and does not cause pain and does not affect the health or function of the teeth. Dental fluorosis occurs among some people in all communities, even those that do not fluoridate their local water systems. Experts believe that the main reason for fluorosis. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry, can we go with the online people, and are they still there?
Or if you're still here and want to speak, go ahead and unmute and go ahead. Bert? Did you have a comment? And then we have Herbie. Are you still online with us and have a comment?
I am and I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. My name is Cooper. I apologize for the echo that seems to be here, but I'm an emergency medicine physician at Harborview and the University of Washington Medical Centers. I'm also professor of emergency medicine and health science metrics at the University of Washington and the Washington State Department of Health Regional Medical Officer for Northwest Washington. I'm joining you this evening to provide an evidence-based perspective on this really important conversation that all of you are having about water fluoridation. Like so much in public health, it's really easy to rely on singular statements and opinions. The reality is that our work is much more complex, and benefits and risks need to be weighed when making important decisions that impact our communities, especially those that are poor, have limited access to healthcare, and especially those that are serving vulnerable and underserved communities. Now, there are decades worth of data to confidently say that a balanced water fluoridation plan is beneficial. This intervention has had tremendous impact on oral health, as you heard from others who've already spoken. It's reduced cavities, complications such as oral infections requiring surgical interventions, and a wide range of other acute and chronic diseases. In fact, poor oral health is a leading cause of healthcare utilization and costs in the United States and in Washington State in particular. Now, as an emergency physician practicing at the highest level of hospital care, I've seen way too many people, mostly poor, many under or uninsured, and a large number without fluoridated water, transferred to Harborview for horrible dental infections, at times requiring highly invasive surgical interventions, requiring them to be hospitalized and away from friends, family, and work for extended periods of time. This is the reality that we're talking about here. It's an intervention that has low cost and huge reach with wide-ranging benefit for the community and should not be reversed based on half-truths or incomplete information. We need to stick with the science. The recent report referenced by those in favor of removing fluoride in your water states that it should not be applied to community water fluoridation. Furthermore, the recent court ruling in California did not look at the benefits of community water fluoridation. Now, this is a really important topic and one that I hope we continue to have respectful and science-based dialogue around. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak here tonight and would be happy to take questions as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any, oh, wait a minute, that's all online?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we have one more. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Good evening, Mayor Orr, members of the City Council. My name's Dr. Kurt Ferre. I'm a retired dentist from Portland. Been a dentist for 26 years before I did my first volunteer dental clinic in 2002. On that day, I had to extract a severely abscessed 6-year permanent molar on a 9-year-old boy who told me later that he couldn't remember how long the tooth had been hurting him. On my drive home, I couldn't get this young boy out of my mind. Well, I have no doubt that his parents loved him. He didn't, nor did any of us choose who our parents or what social economic class we were born. But the figurative brick between my eyes was that my own 2 daughters, whose mother, my wife, is a pediatrician and their father a dentist, would never, ever have to experience this kind of dental pain. And this was a defining moment in my professional career and began my growing passion for public health and prevention that has continued to this day. So what is public health? It's a population-based strategy focused on the community, not the individual, and it values the collective good. Fluoridation is the ideal community health program because there is no change of behavior required, no hands-on professional care. Just drinking small amounts of fluoridated water throughout the day adds protection against cavities. Yes, toothpaste has fluoride, and with fluoridation,
They work together to protect against them. When the airbags were introduced to cars, we didn't get rid of seatbelts. Together, they protect against serious injury. Emily Furman already mentioned about the Calgary, Alberta vote. I would just like to add that the voters voted by a whopping margin of 62 to 38% to return fluoridation to their public water system. I'd like to just comment that no one can know everything about all things, and where one goes for information is critically important. While the internet has brought us the age of information, sadly, it's also brought us the age of misinformation. As elected leaders of your community, you have an important responsibility to work with city leaders and experts to create and maintain a safe, healthy environment so that all residents of Aberdeen can thrive and prosper. I urge you to listen to your local health professionals and continue this valuable community health measure in your city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're up now.
Thank you. I have the opposite problem as Dr. Rowley, and this is very tall for me. Thank you. Hi, my name is Mariah Kunz, and I drove here from Linwood, Washington. Also had a very long drive to be with here with you today. I'm not a dentist, but I do have a master's degree in public health policy and have been working in the field of public health for years. The United States has been fluoridating water for over 70 years, and nearly 75% of the country is currently benefiting from community water fluoridation. The past 70 years have seen significant increases in life expectancy, IQ, and dental health, something that would not be observed if some of the very concerning things that you are hearing about fluoride were legitimate. The survey put out by the city shows that the majority of people in Aberdeen want to maintain fluoride. It also shows that the majority of Aberdeen residents get their information about fluoride from healthcare professionals. Looking around at the people here tonight, the doctors and dentists in this community have come out to speak in support of protecting dental health. You've heard from one dentist who opposes, but he doesn't live here in Aberdeen. The people who live here in Aberdeen, drink the water here, and are raising their children here all want to maintain water fluoridation. These are the same dentists that you and your children trust to take care of your dental health. So I'm urging the City Council to please maintain the optimal balance of fluoride in your water, something that will protect children, protect elderly, and the people who are most vulnerable in your community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'm Todd Johnson. I'm a dentist here in Aberdeen. I've been a dentist in this town for about 20 years. And I just want to echo all the other people who have spoken here. It's a good thing for our community. It's safe, it's effective, it helps a lot of populations. And I just want to echo and recommend that we continue fluoridation in this community. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Move that we close this public hearing.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Public hearing is now closed.
Yeah, next up is a report, request from Public Works recommending that the city council authorize the mayor to execute the contract with Gray and Osborne, allowing them to inspect and assess the repairs needed for the water tanks. I move that we adopt this report.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
Mayor,
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that we extend the meeting by 30 minutes to 9 p.m.
Second. All in favor? Opposed? Okay.
Next up, we have a resolution adopting the 2024 Stormwater Management Manual for Western Washington. I move that we adopt this resolution.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I would like to, a motion to remove the second whereas in the definition of this resolution.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. No more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Resolution 2024-9.
And that's it from Public Works.
Thank you. Now we're gonna go back to public comments again. 3 minutes, if anybody has one, please be kind. Start with your name and your ward, please.
April by Ward 3. I wanted to give some applause to our police department. We've been getting a lot of vandalism, graffiti on the bathrooms at Sunben Park. And usually I'm the little pit bull that tells people to go away, get off the porta potties. I did this about a week ago. And the comment the kid said, why don't I said, jump down, get down from there. And he goes, or what? And I said, or I'll call the cops. He goes, well, why don't I just come over there and kick your ass? So I went in, I called non-emergency. Cops got there. I seen 5. By the time the cops got there, there were 11 kids over there. So yeah, they could have kicked my butt. So the police got there, they took care of the situation. I would like to see more sight of the police on F Street. I live by Sunben Park. I have to drive down the hill. I shouldn't have to be afraid to drive down F Street to go to Walmart, go to Safeway. We got a lot more people standing around doing drugs. 2 days ago, I was driving down and some really tall person threw a bike right in the middle of the road. So I threw my flashers on, I got out, I picked the bike up, threw it over my head, and I threw it down on the side of the sidewalk. I shouldn't have to be afraid to drive down F Street because we got more drug people. There's difference between drug use and homelessness. We got a lot of druggies, a lot. And you all know we have it on F Street, not just in the alleyways. They are now going on the streets. My husband's been working for Weyerhaeuser for 32 years. He drives down F Street, goes to work, 4 o'clock in the morning. He said it's like bumper cars, driving through people that just come out in their drug-faced attitudes. And he goes, it's every day. Every day he has to go by people that are just out of their mind. That apartment building right there on the corner of F and Broadway, I have driven by and people are in that doorway shooting up and smoking. This is uncalled for. We should be doing something. I used to live in Seattle. I go to Seattle a lot, and I don't want this becoming Seattle. And it's scary because now we have to actually worry about kids, grandkids, going to the park and looking for needles.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lynette, Ward 2. I was up here before. I just want to, I can't even say the word, back up her story. I work over by the car lot, okay? And I was coming home, and there's that street that goes right by Cannabis 21. And I had to call the police because I was going from work to Walmart at 9 o'clock at night. And there's a guy out there just all over the place in the middle of the road, hanging. I was terrified, one, that he was going to get hit, but there were parents in that walking across the street with their kids. And this guy was strung out on drugs. Hopefully the police came when I called. They wanted to know if he was white or black or whatever. And I said, hey, look, it's dark outside. And I just know he's out there in the middle of the road, rigged out. And I said, someone needs to take care of him, pick him up, take him to the hospital or whatever. Because I wasn't going to put myself in that position. But she's right. More druggies are out. I mean, heavily. Difference between homeless, difference between druggies. And there are more druggies out now than ever before.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Let's see, now we're going on to for the good of the order. Anybody?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was really impressed with the amount of dentists that showed up tonight from Seattle and beyond. The fluoridation issue to me is very important. I started using fluoride when I was about 7 years old. My mom worked for a dentist here in Aberdeen, Dr. Boyd Myers, if any of you there remember him. And they were fighting it with the Great Harbor Dental Association, getting fluoride in our water. And it was really hard. They really went through a long time. I was even using drops. I had to use drops in my water because my mom was such a dental assistant that her son was gonna use fluoride to mellow our water. And then we got it in the water and everything was great. And it's a proven fact that children's teeth in Aberdeen are better than the teeth in Oakland. It's a proven fact. They don't have fluoridation in Oakland. And the dentists know that, the Grace Harbor Dental Association, they know. They're Aberdeen and Oakland, Montesano all together. They know all that and they discover it and they discuss it. So obviously I'm in favor of fluoridation. And I would really like to support that when we come to that point. That's all I have to say.
Right, thank you. Any other? Deb's not here to do the,
We actually need to make a motion to move into executive session in accordance with RCW 42.30.110 to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency matters relating to agency enforcement actions, or to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or a member acting in an official capacity is or is likely to become a party when public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequence to the agency. Action is not anticipated after the session.
is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Right?
That just rolled off her tongue, didn't it?
The executive session has been extended for 5 more minutes.
We just need 7 in the room.
You got
I've got an extra wheelchair now, I'm gonna donate to them out there. Thank you. You're welcome. They'll go on that way, so. Okay.
5, 6.
All right, do it.
When I get older, I'm in the chair.
I will motion that we reconvene.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay.
And I will motion that we adjourn. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Right, thank you guys.
In stereo.
Yeah.
I aim to be speedy.
Good work.
Ask you every time, you're not gonna.